Great. Good morning, everyone. It is 9:02. We are going to get started pretty close to time. I do want to say that I'm only going to be here until our chair arrives because I have another commitment. But I will get us started and she will get us finished. Welcome to the April 22nd, 2025 Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization Board meeting. Let's read through our non-discrimination ethics reminder, and can we take a roll call? Can we start with you and figure our way around?
Linda Alum, Durham County.
Doug Plachinsky, Triangle West.
Karen Howard, Chatham County.
Sally Green, Go Triangle. Amy Fowler, Orange County.
Nolan Carter, Orange County.
Melissa McCullough, Town of Chapel Hill.
And we also have Mike Bell here who stepped up for us. Oh,
Yeah, Mark now.
okay. Are there any adjustments, corrections to the agenda?
None that I'm aware of. Wasn't there something I was supposed to bring up? Oh, it was about the alternatives analysis for the
Yes.
NDP. We're actually asking, so we're going to present all of the alternatives analysis in documentation, and we're asking the board to allow us to release them after the meeting. We finished our work.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay. So we can leave the language as is. Was that right?
Yeah.
We're gonna, okay.
Calling it out.
Should see that. All right, we can go into, I don't know, we have one person signed up for public comment. Yes.
They're online.
They're online.
They are, okay.
Good morning. Do I have the floor?
Yes.
Good morning. This is John Talmadge, Executive Director of Bike Durham. I want to thank you for this opportunity to provide comments via Zoom. Makes it easy to participate in these meetings. And I am providing comment on the item today, the Regional Vision Zero Plan. I want to start by thanking the staff and this board for taking traffic safety seriously and putting the resources and the energy into developing this action plan. And just point out 3 comments. We submitted written comments last week in a fair amount of detail, but a few things I want to just bring to the board's attention before you vote on this later today. And that's that in reading through it, I think it's important to clarify what the TPO's role is, because as is pointed out in the document, the TPO staff are not the deliverers of these projects that can improve traffic safety. So the 3 roles that I really see and that think that you should be focusing on, one is creating and supporting region-wide capacity to deliver a safe transportation system. The second is building this into the prioritization process for funding. That is a part of the annual and cyclical work. And 3 is creating accountability systems so that there are feedback loops of, as work is getting done, what's working, what's not, sharing that out publicly, having transparency about progress that is made both in general on the traffic safety measures, but also toward the specific, there are very, very many specific recommendations in this plan, creating a system to hold each other accountable for making progress on this. And a couple other things that I did not see in there that I think are important roles for the TPO to consider. One is building traffic safety and what's learned through the implementation of this process into an annual legislative and NCDOT policy or practice agenda, where as the TPO, you're communicating the needs that you have, to changes that you're going to need to see made in order to succeed in reaching Vision Zero, and also using it as a communication tool with the other TPOs, MPOs, and RPOs around the state, moving legislation and policy change forward. And the second, which is easier and more in control, is creating an annual, at least, maybe more frequently than that, training for both board members and for staff throughout the TPO region on the safe systems approach, and also on countermeasures that have shown promise in being successful. Maybe it's, a show and tell a little bit about how things got done in one community and how they might pertain to another community. But that's sort of the building the capacity, and whether that is something that is internal or it's a summit that brings in outside actors, I think both of those models should be considered. But I'll conclude by, again, thanking the staff and the consultant team for the good work in putting this together. And Bike Durham is pleased that this is moving forward, and hope that you will see to adopt that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda and the regular agenda? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Sarah, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Item number 5, sorry. Item number 5, Triangle West TPO Regional Safety Action Plan adoption. Good morning, Colleen.
Good morning, everyone. We have spent a lot of time working on this over the last year, and quite a bit of time actually over the last month, incorporating updates to the plan that you saw last month. So I think we've completed this plan maybe in record time, Jared. Just in time for the notice of funding opportunity for Safe Streets for All that came out right after our board meeting last month. So I just want to thank all of you, all of your staff, and our staff who've spent a lot of time working on this plan, as well as our consulting team, Tool and CHB. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jared to present on our final plan.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking some time. I'm going to move quickly. A lot of this you have seen. I do want to touch on a few things that have been updated since the last time. So an overview, and really appreciate the public comments that we just received. I'll touch on a few of those here in just a moment. When it came to the executive summary, just really setting up what this plan is all about. We included the safe system pyramid, which really does focus on how do we make changes that can affect the most people without taking into account the individual effort. It was really great to see that the adopted plan for the city of Durham also leaned into this approach with the safe system pyramid. And then really the foundation around a framework that eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes really does take the stance that we have to anticipate human errors. They're going to make mistakes. So if those are going to happen, how do we reduce the impacts? How do we reduce what's going to happen when conflicts do occur? And so the vision for safety is really based upon the safe system approach. You can see those principles as well as elements. Here, it's not about eliminating every crash on our roadway, but really focusing our efforts on those fatal and serious. This aligns with the state when it comes to the goal of Vision Zero of eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes by 2050, but cutting them in half by 2035, just a decade away, and a lot of work to be done. And so I think it's important to realize that if we do want to make big changes, it is about policy, it is about project, but it's about daily choices, not only from decision makers, but from the general public and how we think about roadway safety. When it comes to the look across the region, we know that these numbers are really heartbreaking. These are people, these are not just statistics. And so we've added in some things for additional information with seeing how these fatalities can serious injuries, where they are from a mode for pedestrians, people bicycling, as well as motorists. A thing that was also added in based upon the Safe Streets and All Streets and Roads for All notice of funding was that underserved communities was specifically identified to align with areas of persistent poverty. And so in the document, we wanted to show these things. However, we did keep the indicators of potential disadvantage, which takes a deeper dive into some of these equity and demographic categories. You can find all of that information in the appendix, as well as we're giving that data to the region. The areas of persistent poverty are at the census tract level, and then the indicators of potential disadvantage at the block group level. So you can get a little bit more finer grain with the data and that additional analysis. Still showing the high injury networks and the coverage for all of the member agencies that were analyzed. We also added in here when it came to the risk analysis, and this is again repeated in the appendices for each jurisdiction, is that we wanted to break each one of the risk factors down so that you could see where it is highlighting individually. And so, I'll show that again here in a moment. All right, if you click on that screen for me. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Just an overview of engagement. We had technical advisory meetings. We did a safety summit, which I was excited to hear even in public comment. And there's this opportunity, and hopefully that the TPO is able to do that again in the future and bring people together, talk about annual reporting and what's happening. 2 open houses, 8 local events, and 2 online surveys. Our last open house was just days after we saw you last time on March 13th at Carborough, and really getting feedback on the strategies and actions. You can see those local events that really were partnerships with local agencies, piggybacking on things that are already happening, as well as reaching out as part of other planning efforts. You can see some of our online survey results as well. Again, taking into account that people were being surveyed by a number of different agencies, trying to lean into as much information as we could from those. Focus areas, the proactive countermeasures. So this not only identifies the Federal Highway Administration's list of proven safety countermeasures, which is what you see on the right, but also proactive safety countermeasures that are based upon findings from our analysis. And so things that could be done across the board to really think about safety in a new way along the roadways. You can see our prioritization criteria, as well as foundations for risk around severity, exposure, as well as likelihood. And then this is just a look at both the kind of priority intersections as well as corridors across the region. I do want to mention again that static maps are only one part of the story. The data that's being provided really does take a deep dive into all of the roadway segments and all of the intersections across the entire region for individual communities to use as they need to. Strategies and actions. I won't go through every table as I did last time to show those, but I did want to mention that we had some really great feedback during our comment period from EMS, and we're able to add a category for post-crash care resources and programs. It is very rare that EMS, one, has time to get involved, and in my experience, doesn't always provide specific comments. And I would just like to thank their participation, because really they were able to give us very specific things that they think would be really valuable for them when it comes to post-crash care. We've also added this kind of visual library, adding into any words that may come into kind of our transportation speak. We wanted to add a visual into this, this document as well. And you can see these are those actions that came directly from EMS with very little kind of change from us, because they are the experts when it comes to how, what the resources that they need. And so this was really exciting to get these as part of that comment period and be able to add them directly into. Lastly, I'll just touch on metrics and accountability before appendices. There are a number of things that can be measured, that can be reported on. We just heard in public comment the idea of accountability, creating resources for people. This is a great way to tell those stories, the projects that are being implemented, the impact that they're making across the region. And that kind of tracking, when you're thinking about target setting, does get to accountability. If we're doing projects that are being really effective, we need to be doing more of those types of projects. If we see that we're not doing something and the problem is actually getting worse, we need to prioritize our efforts there. And so target setting on an annual basis is really going to be the means for having some of that accountability and getting more fine-grained with what we report on. And lastly, sharing responsibility. This is, again, for everyone. The Triangle West, while they are not a implementer, they need to be creating resources. They need to be identifying project funding and really helping their member agencies. NCDOT needs to be thinking about project development, funding, as well as partnership and guidance, and then member agencies as implementers, as those that are on the ground, thinking about the right policies that you're adopting, thinking about strategic programming, as well as being proactive and not just reactive. Lastly, I'll just run through the appendices. We talked about the analysis. All of the kind of methodologies around those are included in the first appendix. That more detailed equity mapping and findings are in the second appendix, where you can kind of take a deeper dive, not into just the areas of persistent poverty, but those other indicators of potential disadvantage. And summaries of engagement from the summit, advisory committee meetings, open houses, local events, all of the above are included in the third. And then lastly, the member agency maps appendix, we also included a community data page. This should help if you are thinking about a grant. This is a page that would kind of like be your starting point with some of the data that you would need to present, but it also gives you a really good indicator of what's in the data, so that once you have that data on your own, you can sort it, filter it, look at it in a way that is relevant for your community, not just the entire region. We included the risk maps as well as the top 5 locations in each one of the member agencies. Again, all of that can be found and more in the data itself, in the data dictionary that we're providing. Lastly, because this is a resource, it's really important that we understand that the region is giving this information, and it should be a living document that can be updated over time as we understand what is working, maybe what needs to be changed. And so it's important to realize that policy is at the foundation. We can make changes at the policy level that really impact things that happen on our streets every single day, and not just in big projects. Additionally, thinking about project development, there's a lot of resources as part of this plan, not just the data and the identification of like corridors and intersections and maps, but really deep characteristics around equity, around crash data, around risk probability that is going to be available for across the region. And then lastly, as part of a supplemental piece of this work, not included in the package itself, but we are working on a countermeasure toolkit that really aligns the data with the way that you would select a countermeasure on a local street. This is a resource that collects things across the country, best practices, as well as gives additional guidance from NCDOT, as well as the Federal Highway on how to select countermeasures that work based upon a number of characteristics or risk. And so that's just a quick snapshot of kind of the tables that are in the countermeasure toolkit that are going to be available as well. Any questions? Happy to.
I'm really, well, first of all, I just want to say I think this is amazing. I mean, one, it's depressing when you look at the data, I mean, going through each of our counties and seeing the crash data fatality, and you look at, it seems overwhelming, especially for Durham. But but I really like all of what you have at the end, you know, like what can we do about it? All the action plans. It's really great. When is the kind of the countermeasure toolkit and all that? When is that going to be done?
We are in the draft of that document this week. We're hoping to actually finish it next week, so that it's available kind of very, very quickly after this is completed, as well as the data package. We're right now just finalizing all of that information, so it's available all at once.
And I think it's really helpful the way you have the action plan organized around, you know, immediate, kind of long-term, and then who's responsible. So I guess my question is, for all of us, is always like, how are we actually gonna implement this? And, you know, it seems like, again, it's gonna take a multi-pronged approach. So just any recommendations or thoughts about how do we, I mean, obviously we can adopt it, but would the next steps be also all the jurisdictions adopt it? Can NCDOT adopt it? How do we get it integrated into our UDOs, things like that? So I guess I would like to hear from other people, but you know, how do we get this done?
Does anyone else have a question? Amy and then Sally.
I would just say I agree with all of that. It's a very comprehensive plan and it spells out the actions and who's responsible. And so obviously, I guess we need to send it out to all those. And do they have any dedicated source of funding beyond their regular to deal with that? You know, particularly, I hear Safe Streets for All is the current administration had put it on hold, but I guess we have funding through the end of June. Is that correct?
The current notice of funding opportunity is out now with a due date in June. That's correct.
So you can act quickly if we want to get anything.
For an additional curveball. The administration put a $2 million minimum on the project for implementation. So that elevates, you know, either the scope of a total of a project system that we could be applying for, or multiple projects across multiple jurisdictions, or really focusing on a larger dollar amount item for a particular improvement in a location that's close to delivery. It gives us it's tough to catch up to that.
Do we have anything that's actionable in that time frame?
We'll be working through with our partners and screening opportunities. We mentioned the EMS onboard post-crash intervention systems. We're going to be talking with them and figuring out that. Now, with that $2 million, of that also requires at least a 20% match. So it's, does somebody have $400,000 at the end of the budget year that we can scrape together? So we're going to work, if there's partnerships that we can cultivate, if it's multiple jurisdictions, try to find it. So yes, it's there. We are continuing to advocate at the federal level for increased state fund or increased safety funding. Safety has always been a core program of gas tax redistribution. Right now they're calling it Safe Streets for All. They used to call it HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. We're going to get there. We are not hearing that they're looking at cutting the dollar amounts for safety.
Like everyone should like safety.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. This is really great and impressive work and important work. I'm looking at where it's categorized. It categorizes one item as short term with low dollars, and that is, and it's directed to the TPOs, TPO, Central Ponds, and the municipalities.
update, adopt, and implement land use, transportation demand management, and street design policies that increase safety, reduce VMT, and decrease dependence on single occupancy vehicles. That's a big thing. And I'm surprised that it's called short-term and low dollar, but regardless of that, in terms of Wendy's question, I'm wondering if it would be helpful for some representatives, say the chair and Doug, to go before each municipality and present this plan to help them reinforce. I mean, I know for Hillsborough and Chapel Hill and Harbor at least, they already are on track for, you know, smart growth and improved transportation and all these good things. But if we could just say to them, this is aligned with the TPO's plan and sort of create that partnership and reinforce that message, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that the idea here, and I want to maybe get back to the first question, is around the number of actions that are included. This is not even a comprehensive list of all actions that could be taken. And really the idea was to give a collection of ideas that really anything that you're able to move forward, if you go back to the safe system pyramid, the idea of making changes that impact the built environment, as well as latent activity, these are things that can start to change safety over time. You know, the system has been built over years and years by choices that people made that impact the way that streets change on a daily basis. And so now the question is, what are the choices that you make now that would impact how streets change over the next decade, 2 decades? And so to your point, the idea of presenting this should not feel like it's an overwhelming absolutely everything. It should be more of a here are opportunities that you have to make those changes. And I think that that's a great way to present it to the member agencies as well.
What do you think, Doug?
I think that particularly when we have our 2 largest counties, Orange and Durham, starting to update their unified development ordinances, that's really a key opportunity to have some of those discussions. Because, you know, the MPO, unfortunately, we don't decide how development happens. We've got our local communities and we've got our partners at NCDOT that approve the access to their roadways.
Right, but I'm actually thinking about the towns, not the counties. I'm thinking about, because the towns are where the smart growth happens. That's what the science is about.
Yes, we have already presented at Carver, and I believe Carver has adopted and endorsed this plan.
Chapel Hill and Hillsborough.
I don't think we've officially presented to them, but we're more than happy to work through their systems and get the information from their boards and coordinate with their staff.
I will add, I believe this is coming before the town of Chapel Hill later this month, maybe even next week, so.
First of all, Jared, thanks again. I want to echo my colleagues. This is like an amazing body of work. Really, I think sets us up for potentially some real impact in the next number of years. So I want to thank you for that. I want to pick up back on these questions about sort of what we do with this, right? I guess one question, and this may sound kind of technical, but I'm kind of wondering, I know from the Durham lens, like we have a Vision Zero action plan. Like, do all the municipalities in our TPO have a Vision Zero plan? Should they, right? Because in some ways we adopted our plan, and what our staff said is like, this plan now, you know, going forward, in addition to potentially federal resources, this plan now kind of guides our capital improvement plan work around transportation for the next like 10, 20 years, right? So we're going to use the Vision Zero action plan to really focus our resources. So should in addition to this report for the TPO wide, should all of us have a Vision Zero action plan to sort of really, to make this much more kind of tactical and tangible in our jurisdictions?
I don't know if I can answer that for every community. I think that the reality of the TPO's work here is that it's given resources that could guide any agency within the region on decisions made with capital improvements moving forward. I think that one of the values of working with the city as they were doing theirs as well was that we were able to share the work that we were doing and when it came to analysis and findings to help
really appreciate that, yeah,
influence those things. But that analysis and those findings are really available for everyone. I think I miss on the fact that we are also developing all of this data, even though there's a ton of it that is going to be available for member agencies. We're also working through a dashboard that is like easier to kind of use and see that data. That will also be kind of a supplemental deliverable. So really, the pieces behind what a local agency has in their Vision Zero, those pieces are here. What Durham has done is taken a lot of that work and customized it for the city. This plan doesn't go to the length of customizing for every jurisdiction, but the pieces to have the customization are all there if they decided to. But they could also use the regional plan as kind of the backbone for making some of those decisions moving forward if they decided not to create their own plan.
So my question is follow up to the dashboard. That would be if there's a place, the accountability place, piece of it, especially for the public, I think is real. And in my opinion, needs to live somewhere where folks can see the progress. And also because the TPO is basically a facilitator, right? It's a convener. It's not responsible for the decisions of municipalities. I think there needs to be a clear, like, this lives with this jurisdiction. And if you're a resident, this is where that accountability is. So to Carl's point around budgets and CIPs, like if local communities are going to adopt Vision Zero, there are budgetary impacts on that. And I think it's clear that if it's a priority for residents, they need to understand that, and they need to be able to call on their county commissioners or their council members and say, no, we want this to be a priority and we need this reflected in CIP projects, et cetera, and transit plans and whatnot. So I guess that would be something that if it's going to have a dashboard, that it's clear that, like, okay, this is Durham, this is Chapel Hill. So when folks are accessing it, they're not kind of confused by it either.
Yeah, right now our dashboard is really focused in on what the data provides so that they could understand all of the different pieces. Now, there are easy ways for us to add in kind of, if you're thinking about, any jurisdiction, to find the local resources, we could add those things in. The accountability or the change over time of how many fatalities and serious injuries are we seeing? Those are things that really we see as kind of like the performance metrics and annual reporting. Now, if the TPO decided that they wanted to take that and make it live into a dashboard in the future, absolutely a thing that would be available for them. But right now, our dashboard is really focused on a resource for jurisdictions so that they could find information for project development, for community engagement, to understand those characteristics.
I have one question too. So I have another question. This may be harder to answer. So again, thanks for all the countermeasures. It's a great sort of list of sort of things we can do. And the pictures are actually really good to help people understand like what these different sometimes complicated jargon, what it really means. So if I'm not mistaken, and this goes to the legislature, I want to understand how this plan now aligns with what's happening in our legislature. If I'm not mistaken, there's a big omnibus bill. We've talked about this. This is HB, I think 765, right? Which says that cities can't require road design to be any more involved than what DOT requires, right? So if the countermeasures in your report are some of those beyond what I'm sure are beyond what DOT requires, and so what is that? How do we wrestle with that?
The value of the countermeasure toolkit is that we really did lean into NCDOT guidance as well as national guidance that DOT would filter down. We tried not to provide countermeasures that are really outside, that don't have crash reduction factors, that don't have kind of the research behind them that could be like really elevated into the DOT. So I would have to go back to just double check every countermeasure to make sure that we're not adding one that sits outside of that. But my understanding is that we really did focus in on what DOT has approved as well as what the federal government has approved for countermeasure selection.
Okay. To that point, with every standard in the roadway design manual or the manual on uniform traffic control devices, there's sound engineering judgment built into that. So we're not just designing, and the instructions from those guides are not just to design to a set of minimum standards. It's also that the engineer who's registered in their state is deploying the proposed improvements with sound engineering judgment. conceivably, in some cases, that means there's addition to the minimum standard that's advised. But because of the context of an improvement, an intersection, a road, that they should increase the countermeasures or the visibility of what they're proposing. And I would just encourage, continued partnership and discussion around those things, because there are areas that are more hazardous than others. And a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. So even if the legislature were to adopt some sort of language like that, it's not taking away the provisions of sound engineering judgment that are required in the design manuals.
I think I understand that. Okay, thanks.
Bill again, Carl?
I think it's 765.
HB
HB 765,
765.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that one of the recommendations in this plan is for the adoption of a policy of roundabouts. I noticed that in different areas of the action plans, and it was roundabouts instead of things like four-way stops. So I think that's really significant, and it even mentions like smaller roundabouts, so basically roundabouts. And I know we've talked about that here, and I think you all are doing some type of looking at that policy. But I think that's, to me, is a really key thing for us to all adopt, and in conjunction with NCDOT, in partnership with them. That's because when you look at these like intersection, like where all the bad intersections are, it's like a lot of these we're not going to fix in the long term unless we end up eventually having roundabouts in those places. So to your point, for new construction or working with new development and rezonings and things like that, that's somewhere we can have an impact moving forward. But to me, that was something that really jumped out. And the other was, to keep this going, there's also going to need to be funding. So I guess, Doug, does that mean that the TPO will be asking for some type of funding to keep this, updating the dashboard and tracking the metrics?
Well, we're going to integrate it into our business practices. So, as part of, we have our multi-regional, our partnered MTP that we developed with Campo. We've got performance measures and goals and objectives in that. And that includes all of this. And it includes a lot more than safety. What we really want to do as part of our organizational strategy is not just to be a great organization, but also to be great transportation planners. And Vision Zero is a critical pillar to that. So as part of the updating of that data, we will continuously update dashboards as part of our ongoing safety work in the space, and supporting our local partners and helping develop ideas and implement them to make our streets safer. We're not going to need to apply for additional money for that function. It's just going to be part of
It's part of your work plan.
part of how we do business. Yeah.
We have an online comment from Lisa Mathis.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, this is like a really amazing and wonderful thing that you've put together. I've really been appreciating this. I wanted to add one factor. I know you were talking about costs. Of course, that's going to be a big deal. Workforce is another angle that I would like you to consider. We've got, it looks like a lot of new pedestrian signals. We are currently really struggling with finding enough signal technicians. So if we're going to have this many signals in this area, it might be something worth talking about, where we maybe have a program to train more signal workers. At one point, we had one signal technician left in Division 8. So I just want you to factor in that sort of human equation, because for every pedestrian signal that's out there that you've got people pushing buttons and things like that on them, any signal that goes down is a safety issue. So just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning. That was a great comment.
Good morning.
Wanted to add to Commissioner Jacobs' comments about like roundabouts. I think there's also other additional benefits to us wanting to install those. In addition to safety, it also increases our capacity to be able to have buses go down roads where they currently aren't able to. Like it's on 98, those single lane roads that we have in different places, buses will be able to go, that they can't turn around right now.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I love everything. One thing that I worry about, we talk about safer vehicles. We don't actually address vehicle size in here. And know that the bigger vehicles are more likely to kill. Serious. Bloomberg just had another article a few weeks ago on why SUVs are increasing congestion, making congestion worse, along with other things they make worse. I don't know that we can expect to put that in here, but I'm wondering how we can sort of integrate that issue into the safety work and the congestion work and some of the other things that we do, because like 4 out of 5 new vehicles that are purchased right now are SUVs, and we have to draw attention to that somehow along these lines.
That's a great point. There are some, I'm not aware of a strategy across the country that's targeting that issue particularly well, other than bringing attention to it. But in North Carolina, through some of our partnerships, such as Bike Walk North Carolina, there are some ongoing education pieces that, particularly as drivers are transitioning towards those kinds of vehicles, as our vehicle fleet is modernizing, to inform new drivers what infrastructure looks like that they need to be aware of, and how the other folks that are using the infrastructure, like pedestrians and cyclists, behave. So there's interventions at drivers training that talk about some of those things, and also the potential to have some of that additional education intervention at driver's license renewal, which I'm a little dismayed to hear that in order to solve the waits at DMV, we're extending the period of time for driver's license renewal. Having a parent that needs to get their driver's license renewed right now, I really want her to go and get some of this so she's comfortable driving in Durham with new infrastructure. Don't know that she's ever seen green lanes, and understands that. So I think that's where we can target some of that effort. Because obviously, I think just given our society right now, we're not going to be able to really weigh in on vehicle size. And honestly, if there were 2 things we could do, solve a lot of problems, put a breathalyzer interlock on every single new vehicle made in the country, and require an inspection for old ones to be retrofitted, and then make sure you put your phone device that's attached to the driver in a place that is inaccessible during driving. If we were to do those 2 things, we would have an immediate and significant impact on motor vehicle violence. I wish we could.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I think we need a motion.
Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you. I need a motion for adopting the safety action plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
As a side note, just wanted to remind everyone that the kind of like side chatter and whispering does get picked up by the microphones because they're pretty sensitive in here, so everybody online can hear what you're saying.
Next up is the public participation plan adoption.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monet Moore. I'm a principal planner with Triangle West TPO, and today I'll be bringing forth again the public participation plan. You all have seen this before, so some of this will just look like a little bit of a refresher, but we'll get into some changes that we've made since you've all last seen it. So today we're going to be going over the background, which is just the refresher. We're also going to go over the goals and objectives of this public participation plan, and then we're going to review some of those key changes that we've made since you all have had the chance to review it. And so if you want to follow along and look at the document as you're sitting here, you can scan this QR code. It will bring it up in our Canva to be able to access that full document. And for those who are online, we're just letting people scan the QR code, so bear with us just a moment. Thank you, everyone. So let's get into a little bit of the background of this plan. So this plan, the intent of it is to replace what we currently refer to as our public involvement plan. However, although it is a replacement, there are some things that you will see that continue to be the same, but just presented a little bit differently. And so that public involvement plan, ultimately the goals were in regards to how we interact with the public, how we receive public comment, and what our outreach and engagement strategies are. So the goals of this public participation plan, you've all seen these before, but those 4 key goals is to communicate and collaborate, build trust with our community, use different tools such as making it visual, GIS, the different things that we'll be employing as we do outreach and engagement, and then most importantly, engage meaningfully. So some of the key changes that you see between the public involvement policy and our public participation plan is going to be the use of plain language. So making this a less technical document so we can have an expectation that either all of the people within our region can easily understand and navigate the plan. Additionally, identify and categorize key stakeholders, which we talked about in our last meeting, and then prioritize meaningful engagement. Lastly, we detail how members of the public can participate. We simplified our public comment period, and then we added a social media policy and an emergency policy. So some of the recent changes, we have 2 recent changes that we've made since you've last seen the plan. And if you're following along on page 8, you will see that we added the definition of what we determined to be meaningful engagement. That was one of the things that we heard back from our technical committee, is that we're using this term, but we're not clearly defining it. And so you'll see here, we define it as intentional interactions that create opportunities for representation in planning processes and planning outcomes. So when we say meaningful, we want the public to influence our planning processes and the outcomes of those processes and be able to provide feedback throughout. And then the additional thing that we've done in those recent changes is we added additional stakeholder groups that are more representative of the entire Triangle West. So we want you all to know that we heard you, we reached out to some folks that were recommended to us, and then we brought that into our plan. So for outreach and engagement during the public comment, We did a series of things, including in-person and events online, which included some of those stakeholder groups that are listed in the plan. We also posted on social media asking people to provide us comments. And then again, we do our newsletters and we do our emails. So our newsletters go out to a large group across the entire boundary or area for Triangle West, but also some additional just personalized emails asking people to schedule calls with us, asking people to submit the public comment. And so some of the public comments that we did receive, we've summarized them here. So great improvement using plain language and much easier to read. Use updated technology like display, paid social, or geofencing for digital marketing is something that was recommended to us. And then we received another comment saying that newspapers should not be the key way to reach people in the area. And so if you look through our public participation plan, you'll see that we're trying to employ a lot more methods other than just our local newspapers. And so again, meeting people where they're at across many different types of technology. And so this is the schedule for the plan. So we're currently on this last box here for April 22nd. But again, this has been before the technical committee twice. This is your all second time seeing it. And so today we're hoping to be able to move forward to adoption. And with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Does anyone have any questions? Thanks. So I just need a motion to approve the PPP.
So moved.
Megan.
Second.
Got a first, it's a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Did you need who said what? Okay, I think Amy had the motion and Carl had the second. Next up is spot guidelines. Ellen, morning.
So I'm Satyan here to talk about our guidelines for how we select our projects for spot. So just a quick recap from P7. We did receive economically large submissions in the initial project submission phase. We were able to narrow it down to 24 submissions per mode just through our preliminary analysis. Also, during that submission window later on that fall, we pushed through this policy that also included our methodology for selected local input points, all within one documentation. Approved it later on in the fall after the fact that we had already selected projects. And so just seeing backwards, and so that's one of the reasons why I decided to split this document into two. There's the methodology for adopting local input points, which will occur later in the fall. And then this that we'll be reviewing today has been renamed to guidelines just to be more accurate, as opposed to before it was methodology just to be in line with the second document. And so within this document, there have been changes just regards to the scheduling. We have an additional break month in May. And so we're walking around that in regards to our engagement periods. So one of the main updates within there. This document also presents to the goals of the ATP. These goals serve as the criteria that our members use when initially submitting new projects to us for consideration. Also within this document outlines the calendars, schedules for engagement, as well as the scheduling for submitting the submittals, both our members to us, and also how we submit the submittals to NCDOT. And so just a quick glance at the calendar to see where we're at. We are right up here towards the end of the work group kickoff. So the work group will be wrapping up no later than next month with their final recommendations for any changes for the cycle as opposed to the last cycle. And then after that, we'll have approximately 3 months that Spot Online system is open for us to submit the submissions online to NCDOT. So right now where we're at, we have collected the new submissions from our members as far as new projects that have not previously gone to Spot before. And we're compiling that with the list of projects that competed last year but did not receive funding, as well as the list of carryover projects, projects that are in the state for delivery. We'll also do not need to compete with these for our submittal slots. And so throughout the next couple months, this month in May, a subcommittee of this TC will be meeting to go over our full list of projects and narrow down to the 24 that permitted for each mode. So some key upcoming dates, right today, we'll be approving this methodology. This is actually one of the first things that the SPA office asks for once the ball eventually gets rolling. They ask that all EPOs submit a document that just identifies how the EPO will select projects. In the past, we've kind of included this with our local methodology, and it was more than what they asked for. So it's one of the reasons for separating the two documents. Mentioned TC subgroup will be meeting throughout either this month or next month, and then this will be followed by June. This is when we anticipate to release the project list for public comment to be reviewed throughout the month of July. We'll come back in August for approval. At this point, happy to take any comments on our guidelines for selecting new projects.
Any questions or comments? We just need to adopt the spot guidelines for identifying new transportation improvement program requests. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's the same. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next up. Good morning again. FY 24 through 2033 transportation improvement. These years are frightening.
And yes, so I'll be presenting our sixth amendment to the transportation improvement program. I'll just be very short and sweet since it's already been presented to you guys. Within this amendment, there are projects just using up funds, old transit funds from 2021-20 that were at risk of being lapsed. And so just being able to utilize these funds so that we can keep them. There's also a couple of administrative changes as well as some funding being added to the MSPRT as in addition to an amendment to our UPWP. This did go up public comment and we did not receive any comments by public during this time period. And then one thing to note that was not presented before this went to public comment to you guys is the addition of this one project. The downtown bus stops in Chapel Hill, they received some additional funding through the community project funds. And so just to be able to utilize these funds before the end of the fiscal year, we're moving to our tip now, just get that ball rolling. That was it with this amendment. Everyone has any questions?
Any questions? We just need to adopt the TIP number 6. Motion. Sally, second. Amy, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 9, MTP alternative analysis.
So again, we've completed the analysis on the 3 scenarios Jianping's going to present, and then we'll be asking the board to allow us to release for public comment. Following the meeting, we'll be working for that to gather that public comment and refine a preferred alternative to recommend for adoption at subsequent board meetings.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The presentation is alternative analysis of 2055 metropolitan transportation. Following the objective and goals, as well as the efficiency and the need analysis. Alternatively and evaluating is the third steps in developing 2055 MTP. After this alternative analysis step, it will be a preferred scenario development. It is draft final MTP.
One question about that. So we've been looking at this in a couple cycles, right? So, and we've been looking at these like 3 different scenarios for 2055, right?
Yeah.
And so And so, and you, as you said, you've done this kind of needs assessment, the deficiency analysis. Does that mean that when we get to the 2055 NTP, that we're going to pick one? Are we going to keep these three scenarios as sort of like as we go along, or are we going to pick one that we're really focusing on?
Yeah, very good questions. So all the projects, highway and transit project, which evaluate in these scenarios, may be a final project, maybe not. So we answer it in other ways. The preferred scenario will contain most project from this three scenario, but there are some additional project I will mention later. Getting into the final scenario is not in this three scenario, but in general, the preferred option is a mix up of these projects from these three scenarios. Does that answer your question?
Not really. So no, I guess, are we adopting sort of on the front end here, like one of those three scenarios that we're really going to focus on going forward? Or are we going to keep those three scenarios as sort of like options as we go forward in the MTP planning process?
That's good questions. So there are transit side, highway side, and technology side, three part of the MTP projects. We could base highway on one of the scenario, one of the three. But for transit, we could based on another one, three of the scenarios to reform the final preferred options. So it's not just based on one of the.
So we're going to keep the three will still be sort of active as we continue the planning process. Because one is sort of like the kind of sort of like do nothing sort of scenario. Right? Then there's the middle one, then there's a third one that's kind of much more focused on transit, right? So there's those three will still be alive as we continue this process, even though one may be a preferred scenario.
Three, maybe two of them are live more, will help contribute more projects to the final. One contribute more for the transit, the other contribute for the highways.
Yeah, so I think
Still,
we'll be picking the components of the different scenarios to kind
So we're not
of,
going to ditch any of them, but we're still, the three will still be to some extent.
we're using the scenarios to test. the
We'll use all
alternatives.
three going
We're
forward.
using all three to test and to get input on. And then based on that input and the tests, picking the projects and making a list for the final. And then we'll assemble all that and run it again. So we, in combination with Campo, we'll have the final model with the preferred, with the adopted list of projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
the schedule is here. We finished this three scenario evaluation in this month. And after we get back for the public comments, input, June and July, we will get into a preferred scenario development. So we show this slide back in a February meeting. These are generally how this scenario was defined, what assumptions in general for the three scenarios. There are four scenarios listed here. The deficiency scenario is a baseline scenario. That assumes we only have projects for highway transit look into next 4 years, which the fund was committed. We have funds, and that kind of project as a committed project has the base condition, the current condition. Call it deficiency analysis, and it's a base scenario for the MTP. So the other three scenarios is plans and trend, which mostly focus on the highway project, highway development. Second one, the last one altogether is focused on the transit. There are more transit projects and the shared leadership in the middle, less transit project than the altogether, less highway projects than plans and trend is in the middle. And the sign here for $1, $2 is not in a linear way. So that's not means you get $2 is double investment. No, it's not linear explanations for this sign. It's just indicate second scenario plans and trend scenario get more than the deficiency analysis scenario. So that's explanation. All the sign in this table, not in linear way. It's just indicate more or less. This table is just showing assumptions for the highway part, foundation, transportation foundation, or transportation supply. And for highway part, so the plan and the trend scenario, as mentioned earlier, is focused on the highway development. And we remove a couple of projects as you suggest, but we still focus on the highway development. There are a couple of projects I want to mention here. One is the US 70 East 6-lane expressway. We will mention that later. Just draw your attention here. That's one of the projects in the plan and trend scenario. Second project I want to mention here is US 15501. So in Durham part is expressway, in Champion part is modernization, roadway modernization. Together with US 15501, there's US 15501 bypass. North of the second project I mentioned is west of Duke. And this part was a widened capacity improvement 6-lane that assumed in the plan and trend scenario. I just want to mention these 3 examples here. Later we will address showing some results for these 3 projects. For shared leadership, we also take project away. Generally, we based on 2055 MTP with some adjustment. For example, the Duke Gregson one-way conversion project was taken away from the MTP. We keep this current one-way pair. And we do some safety improvement based on congestion management suggestion, speed reductions, including speed reduction and other improvements. And US 70 East, we do a parallelized collector roadway on each side of US 70. We have collector. Altogether, the one more project we add there is a Durham Freeway from Greek south to eastern end connector and further extend to I-40 with a high occupancy vehicle lanes there. Serves for the share rider vehicle and BRT.
Just one question. Can you say on that slide, so where under, it says a couple places has like adjustment. So like, what is that? What is the nature of that adjustment of like 147?
Adjustment, for example, if we have HOV lines for the Durham Freeway, the other kind of project for modernization maybe we are remote. So there are 2 projects overlapped. One is previously in the MTP, like the Duke and Gregson. So in the previous MTP is convert this one-way pair to a 2-way roadway. That's a previous. But now based on the congestion management, it suggests not convert it to a 2-way roadway, keep this one-way pair pattern, but reduce speeds and do other safety improvement. It's not final preferred option can be discussed, but in this testing scenario, so that's adjustment because we have a new project testing. So the corresponding project in the MTP will be do some adjustment. That's adjustment means.
So when it says modernization, and I clicked on the project now, where you can click further, is there any place that shows the detail on any of these projects of exactly what the modernization would consist of, or is that known yet?
The modernization, it has some result from the model, but based on some assumptions, there are different type of modernization there. We can make assumption. So current assumption in the model is a special treatment of intersection and also multi-use paths around 18501. Special treatment patterns for the intersections.
I understand generally what modernization is, but has it been nailed down what specifically those projects would be?
No fix of the project, very general. Also so from MTP, they will form a corridor study. From corridor study, they will have a recommended scenario for your approval. So this is very general right now.
So, I thought I had read in the document that modernization was adding lanes. So what you're saying is that it's not always adding lanes.
Not always.
Not always.
There may be, and is that a through lane? Is it a turn lane? Is it doubling up a left turn lane? It could include all of those things. It's more of a general level of investment and improvement.
So in other words, for this project, not adding general purpose lanes. So if a modernization, generally we see not adding general purpose through lanes. Intersections have some treatment.
That's one of the difficulties, and maybe it's because I'm still new and I'm still trying to learn the jargon for all the different groups I am on. But as we take this to public comment, some sort of explanations along the way might be helpful. They're trying to make comments.
Try to get it.
You have to make footnotes.
So this slide shows transit assumptions for these three scenarios. As mentioned, plan of train scenario is focused on highway, so there's less improvement on the in this scenario for transit. The only things we're adding intercity passenger rail on-track service there. Assume a new station is RTP station, and existing station is dorm. We assume one more additional station, new station RTP at RTP. BRT, we only have Champion North-South BRT there. Bus line is equipped there with short-range county transit plan and some adjustment for frequency and hours changes. Shared leadership, we get more transit service. So for the intercity passenger rail, we add two stations, one at Hillsborough, the other at Melbourne in Adams County, because it's in our model area. So we add that one into the shared leadership scenario. The BRT lines, Champion North-South BRT line still there. Dorm Orange BRT is added. Duke Dorm to RTP BRT added. Bus line generally follow the shared leadership, follow the plan and train scenario with some adjustment for frequencies. Altogether, as mentioned earlier, is focused on transit. We get more transit. It's for testing. It's not saying we have this amount budget, so many transit development, but as a testing, we add many project intercity rail as same as shared leadership. We add back 2050 regional commuter rail back to this scenario as testing purpose here. All the 4 BRT lines from 2050 MTP was back. Some of them with extension. For example, Champion North-South BRT. To south, we extended to Farrington in Adams County. To north, we go all the way to the Hillsborough and keep moving to the west to Melbourne, Adams County. for the new BRT line, we added US 70 BRT lines from Raleigh. They stop in the middle all the way to the village west of Durham, west of downtown Durham. There's another potential BRT lines for Central Durham. We will add it in preferred option likely. Then the city's consultant provide us necessary information for that BRT lines. Last line, we made some adjustment with new extensions of the BRT and new added BRT, so we made some adjustment. So this slide shows assumptions of future population and job growth. The first table shows 2020 job number, 55 forecast job numbers by county. So you can see Chatham County and Durham County fast growth there in terms of jobs. And second table shows the population growth. Still Chatham County, Durham County fast growth. If you look the numbers of job growth percent, 85%, and population growth is 47% for 3 counties as a total. This indicates our assumption of forecast in the future in this area. Job growth will outpace the population growth. So we are still remain a job center here. You can see Durham. So that's assumption for the population and job growth.
Yanping, where are those other people living? If we're still the job centers and we're increasing that much, where can we guess that they're going to be living and to get to the job centers?
We haven't looked down to that detail based on our past analysis for existing conditions. For example, if you take Duke University as example, the jobs from Wake County, not the people from Wake County, from Champion Carrboro area, a major employee, where the major employee lives in Wake County and the Champion area.
So they're living farther away and driving.
And also, if you look town of Melbourne, their employees mostly goes to Triangle for work. So if you look their residents who work outside Melbourne, the most destination is Champion and Durham. So you can see the job where from two-way to see where from major employment point. The other Melbourne is from a town outside of our area. Their jobs go into our area.
Wendy.
Yeah, I was gonna raise a similar issue. I think that for the socioeconomic data, we need to showing more than just the counties that are in the MTP, especially because like even the Vision Zero, the Biz Zero, the tool that the Central Pines uses, it looks much broader in our region. And from what I remember, for instance, with Durham and Wake County, that we have, you know, in past, we've looked at the data that shows how many people in Durham are commuting to Wake County for jobs or to Orange County or vice versa, but also that a lot of the jobs in the future, the big job centers are going to be, in terms of number of jobs, will be Durham County and Wake County. And so I think that's important. Looking at the recommendations, because that's going to be the biggest factor in terms of where people need to go. And especially because you are listing here, for instance, on the altogether, you often, they're referencing connections to, for instance, Mebane or Raleigh, so then we should be looking.
Yeah, I got it. So on one side, we will have a detailed, we already have the detailed TAZ, traffic analysis zone with number of population, number of jobs. On the other side, we will prepare numbers for the commuting people from Vic to Durham, Orange County or Champ Hill to Durham or other way around.
Yeah.
Kind of exchange numbers.
For Alamance County, I mean, Alamance,
Person
yeah.
County.
Yeah, so there's a series of
Yeah, all of
externalizations
the,
we call them.
exactly, yeah, we need to look at all that, yeah.
Something Durham. Thank you. This slide is the result performance measures at TPO level, high level, the general. The first table, up left table, is showing transportation supply. So we mentioned this scenario and twin scenario focus on the roadway development. On the other side, the altogether scenario focus on transit development. But that's a general description. But down to the numbers, we have these measures in the first table there. So we have a freeway land mile, we have arterial and above facility land mile excluding freeway. You can see in the plan and train scenario, for freeway land mile, we have 20% more. For the arterial and above, we have 44% more land miles compared with the base year. So the base scenario, deficiency scenarios. For the transit, you look the shared leadership, the gold triangle has 106% service mile over the base scenario, the deficiency scenarios. And the local service, Champion Transit, Gold Durham, Orange County, Chatham Transit, and other Duke University, all lump sum together as a 20% increase over the base scenario in the shared leadership scenario. So these are transit mile increased for shared leadership. That's two examples in this table. And for shared leadership, altogether scenario, as mentioned, is focused on transit, has even more service miles for Gold Triangle and local service transit agencies. One thing I want to mention, the Gold Triangle service mile, including Vic County as well. So at this time, we cannot split it. It's total together, including Vic County and Camp Hill area, Orange County together. So this total service mile increase. So for shared leadership, you see it's very high, but the most service mile increase are in Vic County. It's not in all. So that's for the transportation supply. So we provide this service based on these numbers, highway land mile and transit service mile. But what is the result? The result is showing in the second table. So we have three performance measure here. One is a vehicle mile traveled, VMT. Second is a VHT, vehicle mile traveled. Vehicle hour traveled, sorry. Third one is a transit passenger mile traveled, PMT. So we have these three output in the second table. So with the yellow marked sales, you can see the plan and the trend scenario has a 20% increase in freeway, 40%, 44% in the arterial transit, very small increase. You can ignore that. But what result for this highway increase development, highway development increase? The result 2.2% VMT increase. Because we build more road, widen the road, congestion is down. So the congestion is down on one side, but VMT is increased. 2.2 VMT increase, 2.5 VHT decreased. That's the result of more investment on the highway side for the TPO level. So the other box showing the transit development. If we have 20% of the transit increase in the inside transit service and 106 for Go Triangle % of increase for the Go Triangle service miles, what is the result? The result is we get more transit trip and miles. You see, the mile increase 108% of the passenger travel. The VMT is decreased 1.4 and VHT is decreased 3.5. That gives you a general idea about investment on highway, investment on transit. What's the consequence? What is the result? So highway investment lead to more VMT, but less congestions. And transit investment lead to more transit trip, VMT and VHT decreased. That's a general result at TPO level. Further, we divide this VMT, VHT, and PMT by the population numbers in the TPO and get VMT per capita as a measure. You can see it's around 30 miles. The VHT is around 0.7 hours. The PMT is it's changing from the base scenario 0.6 to the highest transit focus scenario 1.52 in the altogether. Three performance measure by capital. The second table is per your request, get the passenger traveled hours. We get these numbers by transit agencies. We have Temple Transit, Go Durham, the rest of the local service transit agency, and Go Triangle. Go Triangle still including Lee County at this time. So it's generally with the investment more from the base scenario to planned trend all the way to the altogether more investment. It shows more passenger hour travel, PHT. That's all these measures at TPO level. Now we are looking down to the detail, to the highway segment, how it looks like for the car traffic. This map is called, we call it in the past, tomato map. And wider and thinner of each link, divide I body means high volume, traffic daily volume. And the narrow of the line means lower traffic volume. There's a scale here, traffic scale indicate what level of the fall in. But we are talking, it's not talking volume. We're talking about the color, red, yellow, blue. The red means daily traffic volume, car traffic volume over the roadway capacity, more than equal or more than 1. That indicates highly congestion for that link segments. And the yellow is from VC ratio from 0.8 to 1. That indicates some congestion there. So with VC ratio increase means more congestions. So as I mentioned earlier, we look the US 15501 first. So in the base scenario, safety path committee efficiency scenario, to look the 15501 bypass, it only shows some segment in yellow. And this still keeps same, there's no change of this route. This is a 6-lane arterial of highway, and this is a free expressway, 4-lane expressway, this section, and here 4-lane arterial. And mostly some segment shows yellow. This is all yellow, and the cap of it in Champion is shown red. So this one shows the result for the highway investment. We widen this portion expressway to 6-lane. And here we upgrade to expressway or freeway. And Champion part is only modernization. What is the result? You can see here it solves the issues. No more yellow here. This is yellow, no more yellow. But here is get some segment in blue, some yellow. But all the traffic shift to this area is here red. That's a consequence of your widen or roadway improvement. The widen road, upgrade the road, get the issue is somewhere. That's US 15501 project. The other one is before the base scenario, US 70. You see, this is yellow, highly congested Durham, at east of Durham. So after you have a 6-lane expressway, so currently is a 4-lane roadway. After you widen it to 6-lane and upgrade it to expressway, the issues shift to the I-85 east of Durham downtown area. So you see, you get this red improved in the yellow, but still some segments still in red, but the other area get more traffic, get more issues, congestion is there. Shift to other area. So we have to be very careful about the roadway project. Living capacity for and new roadway project. Have to be careful about this. We propose it. This is somehow for the roadway project. So this slide shows for the transit volume, VC ratio map. So we consider the passenger volume, including bus, BRT, rail, all in there. So the sinker and widen of each segment means more passenger volume. The narrower means less passenger volume on that segments. We focus still on the color. The red means the VC ratio over 1.5. That means, so for every, at least for every 3 passenger, at least 1 passenger is stands there, there's no seat. So in the vehicle, they are very cold. That's yellow. So we show it in red. Sorry, we show it in red. For yellow segments, it's from VC ratio 1 to 1.5. So in generally for this segment still congested, it's cold, but less cold than the red segment. So we have 2 scenarios here. So we use this plan and the train scenario as a base. And then we use a highly invested transit project scenario on the left side. This is right, this left. So we look the base scenario first. You can see all the bus on the I-40 showing in red. NC54 south of I-40 is in red. And this TW Alexander and NC55 are in red. There are more passengers in car, it's called in car, congested in car. If we have investment, we invest real BRT in these scenarios. And then you can see NC54, all the red here, most of the mode also will provide more service, BRT and bus and rail service. And NC54, this segment is turn back to normal. Same thing for this section, NC54, from US 5501 and east coast Orange County, Durham County borderline to I-40. So before it's red, you see, now it's turned normal because we provide more transit service for BRT, bus, and rail. So that's a map for transit part. That's a second detail analysis. So generally, we present the overall level at TPO level, the performance measure, VMT, VHT, PMT, and we look the details for transit passenger volume and car traffic volume, AC ratios. That's all the presentation today. So any questions?
Did you do that for shared leadership, what that was map?
Yeah, we have all the links and map online. We will show to the publics. We have all these maps. If you want, I can show you right now. Sure.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar question, like I wasn't sure like what is being released to the public. Because I just want to make sure that it's understandable. I mean, it's even complicated for us to try to understand what's being shared. And then I'm just concerned that whatever's going to be shared publicly is going to be
Right, so our
very,
team,
very detailed and visual and understandable.
it is, so it's gonna need to
Okay.
balance that detail with digestibility,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
if you, it's like a fire hose if we just throw it all at the public and
Yeah,
all its data and information. You can do a great job trying or
yeah.
articulating these complicated processes.
Well, I guess some people want the detail and there are definitely people in our community who like the detail too. So as long as there's options.
I definitely like the visual, and I think that would be
Yeah.
easier for folks to digest, but you need all of the different scenarios, not just two scenarios, you know. So that
Mhm. Yeah,
decision.
right.
Go ahead.
But I also think that it's really important to add a bottom line to everything. So the two slides that I found especially helpful are the two ways of conveying the information that I found especially helpful was the socioeconomic data where you had, you know, fast growth and employment growth outpaces population growth. Those are the bottom lines of that slide. And the performance measures for the region TPO where you go with increased roadway investment leads to higher VMT and lower VHT, and increased surface mile leads to higher PMT and lower VMT. And so, you know, wherever you have a lot of information, you know, if you can have the bottom line, what does this really mean? I think that would help to not overwhelm people. Because there are a
Yeah,
lot
we
of
will
people
do
who
that.
look at this and go,
And we also have a detailed document with maps and language there both. This is because only for the presentation purpose. It's very
It's meant to be, what we'll be presenting to the public is kind of a live document that they can work through at their level of detail. And we just didn't present every iteration of that for this. We're trying to provide examples of the information.
This is the map for shared leadership. You see, this part has some 10 yellow. It's still red and yellow. This roam freely is still not enough service. And this red is for real. So it looks like there's high demand for real service. So this line always yet red, because we have less number of real service. All the scenarios show red, but trend scenario has not yet real service as well. All red. So this is sharing maps.
And this map can toggle back and forth between the different alternatives so that, you know, somebody at their computer can.
Questions. You had mentioned that the job growth is way outgrowing the population growth, and you have not yet modeled where they're coming from, and wouldn't that impact?
We have it, but we need to summarize it into the format you ask. So we have the numbers all inside. This 70 gigabyte data is inside. We need summary it at, for example, Champion level, Champion, Durham, big county. We need summarize.
It seems like that would impact what transportation modes people are taking as well. And then my second question is the population growth. What numbers did you use? Because like for Orange County, I think we're currently somewhere around 150,000. So it's not sure about how you're estimating the growth.
Measure.
The population of Orange County is currently somewhere between 149 and 152 it depends on what measures you're using. And based on that growth from the number you got from 120, seems like we would get higher than the number you gave us. So I'm trying to figure out how y'all.
Projections, they come from the state demographer, right?
So we use 2020 census data as a base for all the area. It should be 100% match the census data for 2020. So for the 2055, state demographic has a projection by county, by each county, Orange County as a whole. There's a total number of groups. And from census, we have a base Orange County population, and the Champion still same population as census. But when allocating the groups for each scenario, Champion may get a different population, but I don't think there's big difference. It's very close, small difference. But we can summarize the population number at Champion, at Carrboro, this municipally, we can get all the population numbers there for public involvement to let public knows what kind of groups for your area. That can be done.
So I've got another question, Doug, on this. So this goes back to the question about sort of like what, like the clarity of this presentation. This is obviously the complex models, right? So I want to make sure we're clear what we're asking people to comment on, right? So we've got these different scenarios, we've got assumptions, we've got the outputs that come out of that. So are we asking people to sort of like, do you agree with the assumptions kind of stuff, or which model do you like? Like, what's the level of like, what are we asking folks to comment? Because it's a pretty technical piece thing, right? So
I'm gonna lean on Monet, who's worked with Campo on the whole public rollout of this information for comment, to maybe answer your question best.
Thank you, everyone. This is Monet Moore, who's speaking in the room. So I've been partnering with Bonnie, who is our partner over at Campo in regards to outreach and engagement. So our initial survey, as it relates to the alternatives analysis, will ask people to kind of weigh in what goes into the model. So when we talk about those key assumptions or those development, really getting a preference for like how people want to see investments made, whether more investments being made into highway, like you saw in the chart for our plans and trends, or more investments being made across the board, whether it be bikes, ped, or transit. That will kind of let us know what of these plans and trends and projects the public's align with the most, and then inform what key projects are then going to be used for our preferred option. And so in addition to that, we'll do a survey in regards to how people relate to our alternatives that's being presented to you all now. And then there'll also be a scorecard showing how each of those alternatives perform as it relates to the performance measures that you all have seen before.
I have a follow-up question then. Because you're working with Campo, where are they in their process? Are they a little ahead of us, or
We would be on the same process because it's going to be one survey for the entire, I guess you could say 2 regions, for both our area, Triangle West, and then also for Campo's area.
Okay, so they haven't tested a thing to see how it goes that we could maybe do. Okay.
No, we're kind of holding hands in this.
Yeah, no,
process.
that's fine. I just wanted to, maybe there was lessons learned that if they were a little ahead. I think to everyone's point, however it moves forward, both on Campo and for our TPO, that for the most part, people just respond to pictures way better. Like that's just like text heavy things just don't. People just get lost in it. So yeah. Anyone else? Thank you.
Actions.
Yeah, our action, I think, is just to authorize staff to release alternative analysis once all model results and documentation for 3 scenarios are complete.
They are complete. That was carryover language from the TC.
So just release.
Just for 30
For comment.
30-day public.
Second.
All in favor? Did you need to know who said it?
Yes.
I think Amy, no, sorry, Melissa said move and we had a second from Coral. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, we do have 2 questions from Julie.
Okay.
Asking, is the altogether showing the rail is over capacity and then will there be a V over C for the roadway maps for NCDOT and the public?
We have all maps for the VC ratios. It will present in the public involvement section. We can get it for NCDOT, that's no problem. So because the time limited, we only show these 2, but we have all for this 4 scenario, 3 path-based scenario. We have all the maps and data. So we plan to show NCDOT need also can. It's together showing that. Yeah, in the shared leadership and altogether, the real passenger is over seat capacity 1.5. It's not just over, it's 1.5 times seated capacity. It's over.
Thank you. Next up, Triangle Transportation Choices FY24 Annual Impact Report. Jenna and David.
Sharing back up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna, and I'm going to be sharing some highlights from the Triangle Transportation Choices FY24 Annual Impact Report. So for those of you who don't know, Triangle Transportation Choices is the name of our region's Transportation Demand Management, or TDM, program. And it provides funding for initiatives across the Triangle region that reduce demands. We've been hearing a lot about the supply side transportation. This is more focused on the demand side. So the program funds different marketing campaigns, digital outreach, in-person engagement, and promotional events that encourage residents and workers to use alternative forms of transportation, alternative to driving alone, that is, such as biking and walking, carpooling, van pulling, and using transit. So the program receives funding from 2 sources, both federally and by NCDOT through the Integrated Mobility Division. Federal funding we receive from Triangle West and Campo, the CMAQ program. And these funds go towards both funding the program administration, which is what we do at Central Pines, and then also the vast majority of it is passed through to our different grant awardees who do a lot of different projects, both regionally and locally within their jurisdictions. We also have community-based nonprofits who are funded through the program, and occasionally innovative projects when we get applications for those. So in FY24, the total funding awarded for the program was $1.84 million. And there were 18 different grants awarded across the region, mainly here you're seeing in Orange, Durham, and Wake County. These are the logos of the different programs that take place within Triangle West TPO region. So we have Duke's Unpark Yourself program, UNC's Commuter Alternative program, the City of Durham's Way to Go Durham program, NCCU's Eagle Commuter Assistance program, Go Chapel Hill, Carborough's Transportation Choices program, Black Girls Do Bike, and also the Go Triangle, Go Perks, and Share the Ride NC program. And the actual impact report that's linked in your agenda, there's a full page dedicated to each one of these programs. So I highly encourage you to go take a look at that, where they really kind of outline all the different activities they had done for the last year and milestones they reached and performance metrics. So if you'd like to get to know more about each program, you can go there. So during FY24, the grantees collectively promoted alternative modes at 198 total education and outreach events across the regions, directly interacting with over 17,000 people. Now, to calculate the annual impacts of the program collectively, we collect a whole bunch of data from our grantees. We ask them to give us very detailed spreadsheets at the end of every quarter that give us all kinds of metrics from, social media engagements, the number of events that they received, how many people they directly interacted with, like I just showed you, and then other types of things like transit ridership, park and ride usage, participation in different commuter benefits programs or commute challenges, etc. So all of this data gets added up at the end of the fiscal year, and that becomes our program participation base, which is essentially the total number of people who may have started using or increased their use of alternative transportation modes. So there are people that we believe did use alternative transportation modes. So we kind of start there. And what we do is really funnel that really large group of people down to a smaller number of people who we are able to determine or estimate, I should say, did make travel behavior changes, because they were directly influenced or assisted in some way by the TDM program. And the way that we do this is by applying a series of impact factors that are derived from the region-wide commute surveys that we perform every 2 to 3 years. We had an employee and a student commute survey in 2023 and 2024. We received over 10,000 responses to those surveys. And essentially that data all gets crunched to determine how we can convert the number of people influenced by the program into the actual impacts. So for FY24, results are that 4.9 million vehicle trips were avoided due to the program. 2.8 million.
And Jenna, that's compared to like the previous fiscal year, or?
The next slide will show like a time series of each year. Yeah. So we had 70 million commute miles reduced, 24,000 transportation users reported. So in addition to the 17,000 that we directly interacted with through outreach events, also adds a certain number of people who are visiting all these program websites, interacting with their social media posts, participating in commute challenge events, etc. And then 53 million pounds of carbon dioxide release was prevented. And the next column kind of gives you some more digestible ways of thinking about those metrics. And as promised, so we have a time series graph showing the past 10 fiscal years actually of performance for the program. Now I will say that, while it looks like there was quite a dip between the last fiscal year and this fiscal year, because we did update all of those impact factors, it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. This time when we got all the commute survey results, because a lot of people are now like teleworking at least 1 day a week, we essentially weren't able to account for as many reduced vehicle trips as we used to be, since people aren't making these. So that's kind of how that works out. In as easy way as I can describe it. But what you will notice from this time series graph is that year over year, we have been exceeding the program target, which is to essentially reduce commute VMT by at least 25% of the estimated annual growth in the regional commute VMT. And this target was established at the very beginning of the program back in 2007, when the original TDM plan was authored and the program began. And I will say that we are currently undergoing a process of updating that plan and are looking at new goals and metrics, both, related to vehicle travel reductions, but also additional benefits of the program. And you'll be hearing more about that this fall, hopefully. And lastly, this is a slide that I showed for the first time last year, but we continue to track the societal benefits of the TDM program in an actual dollar amount that really converts the vehicle reduction and benefits of the program in terms of what is the cost savings to society. And, I think during our safety presentation earlier, we had reduced vehicle crashes. So that's like second from the bottom in terms of dollars saved based off the number of trips that were not taken, essentially. And we also have things like reduction in fuel consumption, climate change mitigation, traffic congestion savings and such. The biggest portion really is due to active transportation health. So we take all the number of people using transit, work, biking and walking, and calculate the health benefits of that. So essentially the total estimated savings in FY24 were $28.8 million. And you remember the cost of the program or the funding received was $1.84 million. So it's really quite a return on investment. Yeah, I'll take any questions, and also just wanted to showcase again the grantees and the incredible work that they do across this region. There's some really, really great programs. If you haven't gotten to know them yet, I highly encourage you to, participate in a commute challenge or anything that comes across your desk.
So the groups that were listed, how are they selected, or how is that partnership created?
Yes, so we do generally have a RFP released every year. This time we did it for a 2-year cycle, and they submit applications for what they intend to do, and a lot of them are long-standing grantees who have pretty well-established programs, but we've also recently been piloting different initiatives to open up the RFP to new partners and things like the community-based nonprofit organizations. But the next time we'll be doing that will be around December. You can always find information about that on the CPRC website.
And then I was wondering, because I didn't notice that I didn't see like Durham, and like we in Durham County like work and hear from them a lot, and I think John is online. So John, submit your application in December when it comes.
They're supported currently.
They are supported
Okay, I
currently,
didn't
yeah.
see
They
them.
just weren't a grantee in FY24, but they
Okay.
are for FY25 and 26.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. I think our only action was to receive this item. I think next up is intelligent transportation systems. Matt, good morning. Or maybe we're at, nope, still at morning.
So I'm Matt Day with the Central Pines Regional Council, and I'm going to talk to you all today briefly about the region's ITS deployment roadmap. So first off, what is ITS? So it stands for Intelligent Transportation Systems. And the basic gist of it, it is anything that is technology related that is intended to improve transportation operations. So it could be anything from things like better timing of traffic signals and traffic signal coordination, all the way up to, communication to vehicles and vehicles communicating to each other. So it's sort of a broad range of technology related things you can do to improve the system. So in this area, we have established a Triangle Region ITS work group that is convened quarterly, that Central Pines facilitates, and that is funded by the 2 MPOs in this region. And that work group includes representatives from all the different local jurisdictions.
Matt, I'm going to interrupt you for
Yep.
just a hot second. This is a housekeeping item, so I apologize. We're about to lose several members. It doesn't affect our quorum, but I just want to remind board members that there is no formal meeting. There is a closed session that we can do virtually on the 27th for our ED's evaluation. Thank you. Yes, 27th of May, I think at 9, I think is where we left it, but just wanted to make sure that folks don't forget that. Sorry.
No problem. And I will try to keep this quick. So we have representatives from all the different local governments, from lots of different groups within NCDOT, the MPOs. We also have some consultants that participate in the call sometimes. Basically, anybody in the region who's engaged in this type of work. And the work group is really there for a couple of purposes. But the chief one is to work on implementing the region's ITS strategic deployment plan. But also just having discussions about what ITS projects they have going on and coordinating on those projects and those kinds of things. Okay, so the region's ITS strategic deployment plan was adopted back in 2020. And it provides sort of a framework for the types of high-level ITS projects that the region should be pursuing. Things like it talks about we should have traffic signal priority and unified transit fare box system and traffic signal system upgrades, integrated corridor management, expanding travel information coverage, managed motorways, adaptive traffic signal systems. So that's the type of things that are in there, but it is all very high level. It's not getting in the weeds of we need this specific thing at this specific site. So why did the ITS work group decide that we needed to have this other document, this deployment roadmap? So there was recognition among the folks on the work group that strategic deployment plan really wasn't providing enough detail and direction to the group to help them get over that hump of how do we actually implement this thing. So they wanted a little help in developing essentially a strategic plan to help them figure out what do we actually need to be doing to move forward. And so that led us to hire Exalt Engineering to work with the group and identify those strategic, actionable, short-term steps that we could be doing to move things forward. And this roadmap document was organized around 6 overarching what are called TSMO strategies. So TSMO is Transportation Systems Management and Operations. You don't really need to know what that means, but essentially ITS and TSMO are always kind of treated together because ITS is a TSMO strategy. Anyway, there's 6 overarching strategies. So looking at regional planning, looking at freeway operations, arterial operations, technology pilots, operations and maintenance, and then data management. So our goal with the roadmap document was to go from this, which is a table that's in that strategic deployment plan that kind of gives, here's a high level task. Transit signal priority is a near term, medium cost project. Well, that doesn't tell us a whole lot about how to actually make that happen. So the goal was to go from this to this, where we actually have step by step, here are the things that need to happen. This thing needs to happen first, and then this thing. This is the group that's in charge of doing this thing. Here's what it's going to cost, getting us a lot more of that detailed information. So this is really intended to serve as a guide for that work group to help them understand what they need to be working on over the next several years. And here's just an example of what one of those little dots on that flow chart looks like, you know, it'll tell us, okay, this dot is we need to address the signal O&M funding gap. Central Pines is the champion. Here's a description of what that means. You know, is it something that how does it align with the strategic deployment plan? Is there something that needs to happen before this can happen? You know, what is the cost? Is it related to a STIP project? All of that kind of stuff. We get this kind of information for all of those little spots on that flow chart. I did want to just highlight a few of the regional planning strategies because I think this is what's probably most interesting to y'all. So there are several things that are currently underway at the state level that impact this. So there is a TSMO deployment guide, a middle mile broadband strategy, a statewide ITS communications plan, and a signal management plan that are all currently underway. But then in terms of things for our region to specifically work on as a next step, we've identified this fiber and technology deployment master plan as sort of the critical thing that needs to happen to be able to move forward with a lot of the other tasks that have been identified. And so that is really what the work group is going to be focusing on in 2026, is getting that done. The other thing sort of longer term is that we will have to do an update to the strategic deployment plan, the big plan, at some point. That usually has to happen every 5 to 10 years, and our current one is 5 years old. So we'll have to start having conversations about how to make that update happen at some point. And I believe that is all I've got.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Wendy?
Well, I think it's great to see this update, great to see like who is the champion for a lot of this. I see a lot of it is NCDOT. I'm just wondering how this relates to our MTP adoption. Does this also get integrated? And then also how this is playing into things like our 70 study, our 15501 study, our BRT studies, like.
So I will say conceptually, this document was written, intended to be something internally to help guide the work group and help it figure out sort of what it needs to be doing. Typically what the MPO would actually adopt is that strategic deployment plan, which y'all adopted back in 2020. So that is typically the thing that would get referenced in the MTP. I don't know if.
I mean, I'll add that it's a resource for those projects. So when we talk about what does modernization mean, well, for this, the framework gives us the tool to go through and select what improvements we might wish to make to get better capacity and operations out of the road, just like we would select those different countermeasures to improve safety in the roadway. So yeah, we've got to iterate back through the MTP development cycle and see how it works out. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that our resources are very limited in this state as across the country. We've got to get as much capacity and operational improvement out of our existing infrastructure as we can, acknowledging that there may be places where we need to add physical capacity to our space.
But things like I noticed the signal, like redoing the signals, for instance, is like City of Durham, right? Reconfiguring, and that's like a big ticket item. Or if we're gonna be doing, like we're doing in Durham, these transit corridors where we're supposed to be optimizing the buses, like that's gonna require the signal prioritization. I mean, so, yeah.
And it translates into project, at least buckets.
Yeah.
If not specific projects in the MTP that we leverage into spot submissions that we're getting funding for. So once we get it, it's we gotta work. And I think the spot process has been very supportive of signal work across the whole region. I believe we got a couple of significant awards in Orange County, and Durham has received an award not that long ago for upgrading their signals and including transit signal priority as a pilot.
I really like what you just said, Doug, which I kind of, there was a speaker at the Carolina Theater. I think you were probably there. I know you've heard him before in the past year, talking about how terrible, like we build what we get what we build. But anyway, we've created the reality that we have, right? With, bike pedestrian fatalities or traffic or whatever. But what you just said that I don't remember the exact words you just used about, we need to work with improve what we have. I don't know if we can make that a guiding principle somehow of our MTP, like how to improve, instead of building more roads, like how do we improve the roads that we have? So whether it's like narrowing a lane, because we know that slows things down, or the signal, investing in
Intelligent stuff.
and, I don't know, but I think that's what, I really like what you just said.
I mean, it's we're facing a conundrum, right, with the massive amount, the growth that in this area and in a few other places across the country is like nothing we've ever seen over the next generation. What we understand to happen. How do we manage that growth and still be a good steward of what we have?
Yeah.
And we've got to find that balance.
The guy who was speaking in Durham, who's a big transportation thinker, somebody can remember who it was in the last 6 months. He said, and he specifically called out North Carolina NCDOT and said, nobody should be building anything new. You should be fixing what you have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Our last informational item is the status report on locally administered projects.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, it's that time of year where we give a status update on all of the programs that have been funded through the MPO's process. And I'm going to go quickly through this because I know I'm at the end of a long agenda. So I know some of you are new to the MPO. Locally administered projects are projects that have been funded. They're administered by our member jurisdictions. They're almost exclusively bike ped projects and transit projects. These projects are funded through federal funding sources. There's a 20% match. And NCDOT is very involved as a partner in advising and overseeing the expenditure of these funds. Just the brief overview is our federal funding policy established back in November of 2021 established that we would be giving an update like this twice a year on how these projects are doing and how they're progressing through the process. So if there's any feedback you have on how we can make this report more useful to you, feel free to share that with me at the end. These are typical project delivery steps. There's 5 steps: project setup phase, engineering phase, which includes design and environmental documents, right-of-way acquisition phase, construction phase, and then our favorite phase, project closeout. These are some of the federal funding sources that are allocated to projects in the region. Some of these are ones that the MPO that are at our discretion. And then some of these are federal funding programs like RAISE that are competitive funding programs. We have 51 total projects in our MPO area. And I want to highlight a few of these. There are 9 new projects that were funded through our last call for projects. So you'll see those represented on this report. We have 19 projects that are still being set up, but as I mentioned, 9 of those are very new. 16 are going through engineering, 7 are making their way through the right-of-way acquisition phase. 4 projects are under construction right now. That is the most since I've been here at this MPO. And we have 6 projects that are being closed out right now, which is also the most since I've been at this MPO. So we have a lot to be proud of. In Carborough, there's a project under construction. I think We expect to see that one completed later this summer. And 2 new projects. A new project in Chatham County, I think the first project for them, electric vehicle charging stations. Town of Chapel Hills closing out 2 projects right now. There's 1 under construction, and then there's 2 new projects, battery electric vehicle bus purchases and a sidewalk gap project. There are more details in your package if you want to look through the spreadsheet itself. In Durham, we have 3 projects that are being closed out right now. So this is huge progress. 1 is under construction, downtown wayfinding, and then a new project, some bus purchases for battery electric buses through the last call for projects. Durham County, this is sort of a Durham County project, but also they're one of the members. Technically, NCDOT is doing this project on behalf of Durham County and the city of Durham and Person County. So that's the Durham to Roxborough Rail Trail project. Orange County, we've got a project that's being closed out and a new project on Orange Grove Road sidewalk. Go Triangle, the new project that was funded through the last call for projects is the Mobility Hub. The rest of these projects are still kind of making their way through the system. You'll see those up there. Research Triangle Park had their first project funded through our call, a Davis Drive side path. And then last, but certainly not least, our mobility study that was funded through the MPO's last UPWP, which we were awarded funding for through USDOT for the prioritization process pilot program. That one's a tongue twister. We're still waiting on our grant agreement with USDOT to get that project started. So we can't get going on that, unfortunately, until we're under agreement. But we're hopeful that that will happen any day now, but to be continued. Any questions?
Amy's got a thumbs up. Go ahead, Wendy.
Well, first of all, I really like this report and I appreciate that everyone is like filled out, like what's going on with the project. So I think kudos to everyone for, working on that accountability and getting stuff done. My question was, have any of our grants, the raised grants, are any grants under threat right now? Any of our projects?
Potentially any money that isn't obligated is under threat.
Particularly bicycle infrastructure.
Yeah, that made me very nervous when I was reading a lot of those that said pending or like the rail trail in Durham.
The raised grant, we are elevating to get that under agreement and get those funds lost. So.
Okay, so does that mean like that's all in our court at this point to get those contracts done?
There's collective action that needs to happen. We've, for what we can do, we've completed it, but we're not just saying, okay, well, we filled out the form and sent it into NCDOT. There's obviously some collaborating that needs to happen still to get those projects to project agreement, at least. In this case, it's identify where it's held up at and try to break through. We also are in a situation where the 2 planners at the North Carolina Federal Highway Division office now, down from 7, I believe, at the beginning of the year. So they're managing lots of things on a very thin staffing level without, and I'm speaking for not on their behalf, without a lot of direction from Washington. So we're trying to help them and lead to some successful outcomes and get the grants that we have under agreement so we're not in danger. Chad, more positive to share.
Okay, well, just as elected officials, if there's any role that we can play in advocacy or anything, just let us know.
Does it make sense for TPO staff to meet with federal lobbyists that cities or counties have hired? Would that be helpful? Would that be helpful for us to read? Okay, thank you. All right, I know that's moving, and if you need it to move faster, please let us know.
On that note, Commissioner Howard and I are going to Washington the first week in May for a Chamber of Commerce event where we're going to be listening to members of the North Carolina delegation and connecting with some officials from different federal agencies to better understand their priorities and understand what they need from us to enact the projects that they've already funded. And then the following week, I'll be flying in for the Association of NPOs program for Infrastructure Week in DC. So that's going to happen May 6th and 7th, and then 12th through 14th. And I did reach out to the city of Durham staff, the assistant city manager that handles their legislative work. If there's someone at county, anywhere else that I can connect with, I don't mind taking along leave behinds or understanding priorities and making sure that, that's reinforced. I can't lobby, but I can certainly listen.
I would say on our end, connecting with maybe for each of the counties, whoever their transportation, just knowing what grants we have, like for us, obviously, we have the federal railway elimination grant that I understand is moving forward, but I mean, just being aware of what federal grants everybody has right now that are linked to all of these projects, making sure that whoever you meet with understands, here are all the federal grants that we have gotten that we want to make sure move forward.
Well, I think it's where, some of them are okay because the dollars are already, they've moved further down the pipe. But there's others that are in question because they're not obligated yet, right? Is that the issue?
It does feel like part of the strategy from this administration is to say that, well, the money's not being spent, so we're going to take it back.
Yeah.
But then they're not giving us the ability to advance the project, backing cuts and directives from central. So it's like,
That's the point.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're
and then
combating
the
that.
lawsuits get trickier, right? Right, they've cut their staffing, that's making it difficult to achieve our goals, that's on their end. And we're not spending money fast enough. Okay. I think we're done. I think next up is just board reports. There's no board report from the chair. We have a report from the TC.
Unfortunately, Eric wasn't able to make it today.
Okay. Doug, you're next. Do you have any updates for us?
My thunder's been shared. We're going to DC again as part of those national and state fly-ins to listen and learn. And we're joined by other MPO directors and supporters in North Carolina. So it's something we're finding in collection. So it's much better to voice those concerns than to trying to do them independently.
Thank you. And then I have Lisa Mathis.
She had to leave the meeting. She's gonna submit the board report via email to be distributed to the group.
Thank you. Becca, is here either? Is she online?
Division Vice report is just a couple of things. This is the last week of Spring Litters Week and April 12th to 26th. So wrapping that up. For any who have assisted with it, we appreciate the help because it's an unending, daunting task to try to stay on top of litter. It's also National Zone Safety Awareness Week, and North Carolina was chosen to do the national kickoff, which is happened today at attend at the state fairgrounds. So a lot of things going on around that. Events at the fairground today. Tomorrow is Go Orange Day. Everybody's encouraged to wear orange to signify safety awareness in the work zone. I know a lot of the entities have public works staff who are out exposed to traffic, as a lot of DOT workers, as are a lot of DOT workers. So just a general awareness of that from a national perspective of trying to highlight safety in the work zone. No other reports, take questions if there are any.
Thank you. Division 7.
Hello, everyone. Chad McCluskey here. Nothing additional to report today.
Thank you. Division 8.
Good morning, Brian Kluchar. No changes to the project update. Be glad to take any questions. Thank you.
Transportation Planning Division.
Good morning. This is Julie Bogle. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to give you all a few updates on CTPs, Comprehensive Transportation Plans. So the Comprehensive Transportation Plan that has been started for Triangle West, our committee met this past Monday and reviewed volume capacities and the MTP scenarios. Let's see, Chatham County, their CTP, the model is being developed currently. So there's going to be a pre-CTP meeting in early June to look at SE data and determine the growth to provide future year SE data for the model. And that's all.
Thank you. Traffic operations.
We had John, still on the call though.
Okay, thank you. And then integrated mobility.
I think the member who'd been participating has left DOT, but we'll be getting a new representative soon.
Okay, thank you.
And I did hear that, correct me if I'm wrong, that'll be Nick Morrison.
It will be.
Who went to Federal Highways and was a casualty. So now he'll be back at IMD, and we appreciate his steady and experienced guidance.
Perfect, thank you. And then there's a variety of news articles and updates. And then our next meeting is Tuesday, June 17th, and we already discussed the closed session. You're adjourned. Thank you all.